Right. Where I'm going to go with this is, it's a bit like starting again, but it's not fully starting again, obviously. I can't help but envisage, I can't help but see the future of these videos now as kind of lists, and I might even have to write them, and I'll try and explain them not as lists and something that can be drawn out, but I'm kind of looking at it that way, because, well, it starts very much that way with types of people, and it's not, yeah, you'll see what I mean anyway. So we're going into this at the top, and we've got our first T-junction, and we're going to go left and right and then come down again. Of people out there, and obviously I'm only talking about these people because it's going to be hopefully instructive for all of us to learn about ourselves and other people. Okay. The first bifurcation, the first splitting at the top is or are people that either know life is shit or don't know life is shit. Okay, I got an article up from the Telegraph this morning, because I read through the Telegraph headlines first, just to check the world hasn't blown up. I trust the Telegraph to do that. And I saw this article, and of course the Telegraph is behind a paywall, so you only get the first on this almost two short paragraphs. I'll read it just to give us give me something to get my talons on to get into the video, because I haven't got into the video yet, have I? All right. The millennials have struck again. That's one of the younger generations, isn't it? Not content with hectoring us to go vegan, such is the squeamishness of the entitled, still living with their parents' generation, that those who do deign to eat meat are apparently refusing to actually handle it. Thus comes the news that the supermarket Sainsbury's is to unveil a new kind of packaging. The novel pouches known as Doi Packs will enable consumers to add pieces of meat, fish or poultry into the frying pan without the need to touch them. So a millennial can simply hold the offended package at arm's length, doubtless grimacing at the mere sight of the flesh, and then, as they say in the trade, rip and tip. Okay. So that's your right-wing newspaper having a go at the millennials and vegans, and being what did he call them? Doesn't matter. You got the idea. Now, that is the sort of person that doesn't know life is shit. But again, this is a split off. So let's go up to the top. And just make a good statement to start with. Life is only continued for all of us by consuming other living things. Be it meat, fish, or cauliflower. Cauliflower's living. It's just to give the overall and initial idea of what life is. It lives by consuming itself. Okay. Life consumes itself. The more successful consumes the less successful. You, me, everybody that you're going to see today, all the dogs and cats, cockroaches, ants, flies, everything alive in the world is the end of a chain that goes all the way back to the primordial swamp of, it's obviously complicated in some species, but let's say for humans, the two parents have grown from babies up into adults capable of reproduction and have reproduced. And then there's another adult that will join another adult, reproduce, and that, you, like me, as a chain of those people that have gone all the way back to little mammals that used to run around dinosaurs' feet, right? We are the end of a humongous long chain of winners that have done the consuming successfully over immense amounts of generations, endless generations. You could actually have it going all the way back to the primordial soup. It obviously gets a bit sticky back then. Of game players. Whatever the game is, the genetics, if we know our Darwinian evolution, the genetics has been put into our grandparents, into our parents, and now into us to be winners in the game. The game is consuming other living things, be it cauliflower, cows, or whatever. Right. Let's call that one aspect. The other aspect I touched on yesterday, I think it was yesterday anyway, and that's the alarm clock goes off and you know you've got to be a fraud. You've got to pretend. Because how you feel, if you act out how you feel, you know you won't be a winner in the game. Now, I believe that most all teenagers get either aspect 1 or aspect 2 that I've just explained. And it makes them very grumpy, and this is why teenagers are grumpy. They get it. And this is when most teenagers either go vegetarian, vegan, whatever it might be, or just be grumpy, no, I hate you. Because they now have seen, they've grown up and their brains have grokked that they are going to have to forget any freedom that they can still vaguely remember from their younger childhood and know that that must be subsumed into playing a game where there is no freedom at all. It is complete and utter game playing, and they're intelligent enough to project this forward and know it's going to go on for the rest of their lives. They've got to bullshit for the rest of their lives. Okay. Now, I thought to say that there might be teenagers that are having enough trouble with life at that time. In other words, they're having enough trouble just getting through on the basic level that they never have enough time to do that very easy analysis. And for some reason they can skate over teenagehood and get into adulthood and have never really seen that. I don't know how this can happen, but I can imagine it maybe could. There'll be others that just don't have brains that does analysis that's any deeper than that. There'll be ones that do the analysis, work out very, very quickly that if they carry on with the analysis, they're going to get mentally buried and drop it very, very quickly and just turn their mental back on it and never go there again. So we've got a group on one side who have slid across this analysis and are willing to play the game. And obviously all the tools will have been genetically available to them because they are the end of a line of hugely successful generations of people, let's say. And it's this lot that will write articles like the one I read in the beginning. Others will get stuck with the analysis and it'll bother them. And it'll bother them so much it'll always be nagging in the back of their head for the rest of their life. So I can see, because I've taken this very slowly, that I'm already at 10 minutes, so I don't want to do too much more. I'll end with saying that if you happen to be a parent, it is rather cruel to push the thinking on the teenagers. It is really, what's a nice word? I can't think of one. No one comes to nice. It would be a nice thing to do, to try and help your teenagers across that very quickly. Being role models is obviously the way of doing it, because the child goes, well, mummy and daddy can do it, I can do it, and goes quickly into life and forget all about that and just get on with the game. Modern parenting, I think the Telegraph is right, does a lot of this lovey-doveyness with the children and encourages the thinking. This is bordering on cruelty, because these poor loves have got the rest of their lives to have this bothering them. And we come to the classic one that I always go back to. You've got two questions at the base of everything. Is it best for me? Is it best for society? Yes, all this might be better for society. Ultimately, it might be, if you really understand what society is, where it's going, where it could go, and all that. And nobody knows that. All you're doing here, I was going to go torturing, but it's not torturing. It's putting your children into a cruel, cruel world without the mechanisms to cope with that cruel, cruel world. And this is why we're getting so many of these articles now about these snowflake things. They are snowflake things. They are being put into the cruel, cruel world without having what it takes to cope in that cruel, cruel world. If the parents were doing more to balance out the cruel, cruel world, you could go, all right, you're doing your bit as well to make it better for the children coming up behind you. But they're not. I feel that they're just playing at it and playing with their children and putting them into the cruel, cruel world without what it takes. And we'll go right back to the beginning again. The cruel, cruel world is made up of cruel, cruel people that know how to play the cruel, cruel game. So even having an idea on this side to try and overwhelm the cruel, cruel game is stupid. Maybe noble, maybe wonderful. And if it's ever to be done, it's got to start somewhere. But it's not a practical game, because the survivors over here in this very large world will be the cruel, cruel ones. and putting people over on this side into the adult world without what it takes to be in, to operate in the cruel world, is in itself cruel. So we have in the world out there people who think life is shit, people who think it's a cruel world, and they'd really, I wouldn't even say really rather they weren't there, because a lot of them have understood now, you know, they've been in there a while and know if you say I'd really rather not be here, all that means is you're being edged out, and you've still got to live the rest of your life in the cruel world. You've got to pretend. So you can't even say that. So they understand the situation. And these others that have forgotten how cruel they are and are just getting on and doing it, they might be the nicest, generous, smiliest people that you know, but they are playing the cruel game in a cruel way. And these people are mentally tortured. So the world, I've split them in this first video into the two. The tortured ones and the torturing ones. And for mental, what's the word? We want to be content. The content ones are over here, and the content ones are generally the ones that are the most ignorant of what is going on. They're just, I don't know what they're doing. They're just blinkered, blinded. This is the way it is. That's the way life is. Must get on with it. Diddly did, bobbly dum, dee dee dum, bumpy doo, da dee dee. Whatever I do, I can't think. Must turn the television on. Can't think. But do they even know that they can't think? That they have to keep themselves constantly amused so they don't see? I don't know. But you want contentment, you've got to be over here and not thinking. I can't see any way for contentment when you've seen. And this is why it's this lot that are doing this lycra dressing, going for enlightenment and whatever. And basically all that happens is they get themselves even more unhappy. It is a cruel world.